How y'all doing?
We're good.
We have a very distinguished crowd today, and I dressed up for the occasion. Back to the 1840s. Oh, San Francisco representing. All right, let's hear it for San Francisco.
Yeah!
All right. Can people still afford to live there? I don't know. Is that? Well, we're going to talk about that today because it's an important subject. So anyways, I am Victor Payan.
And I am Pocha, Peña.
And we are doing a project called Dreamocracy in America, which is based on Alexis de Tocqueville, as you may know from high school.
Democracy in America. Yes, first sociological study of the United States, made in 1836, because all those Europeans were wondering, why are these Americans so weird? They're not European.
I don't get it. American.
What's up with them? They're asking for money.
They're asking for freedom.
So they're trying to figure out what really defines the American character and American culture. And some of that was studying the most vulnerable people among us, which were prisoners and sick people. So de Tocqueville went and visited prisons and
sick people
and hospitals,
but mainly
and the built environment, and saw that in fact Americans did not have central plazas like they did in Europe. There was
central heating.
The built environment did not cultivate a sense of social obligation, but Americans were great dreamers. And certainly we've continued that tradition, and we will now dream.
But there's one problem with what Alexis de Tocqueville did with his conversations, because he hit it on the head. If you read his book, which I advise you to do, he got a lot of things right about the pluses and the minuses, the shortfalls, like all those guys hanging out in Michigan in front of the hospital saying they're not gonna, separate. He saw that. He saw the power of the mob.
He also saw the people down in Huntington Beach today that are saying their civil liberties are being taken because of this COVID virus thing, even though they are one of the three main hotspots here in Orange County. So,
but the biggest
parallel universes.
The biggest flaw in his conversation was that there were a lot of people he did not talk to, because he mainly focused on white-landed men, and he didn't talk to African slaves, he didn't talk to Native Americans, women, LGBT community, immigrants. The whole Latino community is not even in there. And at that time, half this country was still Mexico.
Southwest was not in there.
Yeah. So we're going to talk to all those people, which look like you guys in this conversation. Here, let me try to put our screen share here. Hold on. You guys. He didn't talk to you guys. And he didn't talk to Herbert, who we're going to talk to today. So shout out to all you guys. We are really excited to have Herbert Sigüenza here today, who is a founding member of Culture Clash. He is an actor of stage and screen. He's known for his characters of revolutionary people such as
Che Guevara. He had Abbie Hoffman,
Julio Iglesias,
Picasso,
Picante Picasso, Asimov, and he was in Ben 10 for you millennials. I don't know what that is, but for those who know what Ben 10 is, he was in it. And
he has an action figure y todo.
Modeled after his sculpted torso
and physique, yes.
and dome.
Muy
also,
macho.
yes. So we're going to talk to him today. So we're really excited to have him. And he's been artist in residence at the San Diego Rep. He's got some amazing string of plays. He's going to be talking to about some of them today. So let's welcome, without further ado, the Herbert Sigüenza.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It must be happy hour somewhere, at least in Wuhan.
All right.
Yes.
It must be happy hour somewhere. Thank you for having me, Pocha, Victor. I saw Guillermo Gomez Peña last week. Man, that was fun. Fantastic.
We were excited.
So I don't know why I'm on here, because I have nothing to say, but hey, thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's about what you've said over the past 35 years why you're here today. You got a lot of splaining to do. So we're going to explain to the people.
That's true. You know, as you know, my career started in San Francisco. I was born in San Francisco. My middle name is Orlando. A lot of people don't know this, that I was named after Orlando Cepeda. He was the first baseman of the San Francisco Giants when they moved to the West Coast. Yeah, and so I cannot be anything but a Giants fan. And
when did your family move to the city?
I grew up in San Francisco, and I went back to El Salvador when I was a little boy. at 9. So I did a reverse immigration thing.
So when did your folks come to the Bay Area? When did they come to the U.S.?
My folks came to the United States in the 40s. In fact, my dad, he's a World War II vet. He went to New York in the beginning and with his cousins, and they all enlisted and got citizenship when they got out. And then he met my mom in San Francisco in a boarding house, and then they went to back to El Salvador. They had my brother, and then they came back and had me in San Francisco. And they named me Orlando.
And speaking of your brother, you're not the first Sigüenza that's had a brush with fame.
No, you're right. You're right. A lot of people don't know this, but my brother Ruben Sigüenza, he is the original bass player for a 70s band called Mink DeVille, 70s rock and roll band that is associated with CBGBs in New York and the new wave sound of New York. He was part of that. And
where did they start? Where did they rehearse?
They actually started in San Francisco in the Excelsior district in my garage, in our garage, you know. They started playing right on Vienna Street in the Excelsior. That's where Mink DeVille started, in San Francisco, and then they moved to New York, and that's where they became known and famous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they were better in San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah, well, you know, Willie DeVille is a great singer. You know, he passed about 10 years ago.
Mama,
yeah.
Don't be. I asked you before. I know you probably forgot.
Hello?
Don't be going in and spraying anything in my room.
Yes, a little.
Somebody got to mute themselves.
Yeah, a little.
Huh?
That's the Jerry. You need to mute
Did you spray anything in my room?
Please.
Real drama.
Real
Wow.
quarantine dilemma.
Please mute yourself. I call the shots here. Tremendous. That is the worst. I do the worst Donald Trump in the nation. I'm a comedian, but I don't know how to.
Let's hear it. Let's hear your Trump impersonation.
You just heard it. You just heard it. Please mute your.
Yeah.
Full on manifest destiny there with Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well,
but thank you for having me, guys. You know, thank you. I really love this idea of Dreamocracy because, man, you know, now that we're all sequestered in our homes. I mean, I think the country was already sequestered, you know, a long time ago.
I know a lot of people that were sequestrado in Tijuana, that's for sure.
Sequestrado, but we were sequestrado, you know, our democracy, our rights, our whole sense of being, of liberty and freedom, our whole civil liberties have been sequestered for years now, you know.
And we've been having school shootings like every week up until this thing happened.
Yeah, the quarantine has actually been good to stop that. That's one of the pluses.
The virus.
Yeah, this might be the first mass shooting on Zoom tonight, but you know, we'll see.
Hopefully, it's not the first bombing on Zoom. But anyways,
we've taken precautions.
We've taken precautions. Yeah, you know, there's this thing called Zoom bombing. Actually, that's not cool. And they found out that a lot of people that are doing it, they're interrupting conversations. They're white supremacists. The FBI has actually put out a bulletin, and they want to disrupt this kind of conversation because we are forming community. We're maintaining community as we speak through comedy. And
don't be scared. Don't be as scared.
I'm really scared. No, they should be scared of us more than anything. But I love this whole this whole conversation we're having and that you guys are trying to have here because again, I don't want to be serious today, of course, but you know, this whole nation has been sequestered and our democracy is sequestered, but you know, the whole country was founded on a false promise. It was founded on racism. You know, we had to clear the land of Indians and Mexicans in order to become a country. You know, and so you know that stuff's going to take a lot of years to get over. You know, it's not going to happen with Biden. You know, Biden's not going to save us. You know, it's not going to happen with Bernie even. You know, I think, you know, it's going to take a century to get to the dream of democracy, I think.
Well, that's why we're here, because there are people working in communities now, the same communities we mentioned before that were left out of de Tocqueville's conversation, that are working on like the pipeline issues, the Me Too movement, the Dreamers, LGBT rights, you know, people who are fighting for women's rights. They're in the process of redefining Dreamocracy right now. And we want to spread their messages and also the messages of artists like yourself that are keeping people inspired, because you work a lot with history, documentary theater. You do a lot of historical characters, and you know, from the beginning. So tell us, like, as a writer, as an artist, like, what do you see in America from your documentary research for comedy?
Well, you know, if you know Culture Clash's work, our first play was The Mission, where we explored the canonization of the so-called father of the mission, of the missions, Junípero Serra, you know?
Dewey. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, you know, we like to take history and rewrite it because, as you know, history is not written by the victors, but by the people. You know, it's written by the victors, not by the people that were, you know, exploited or killed.
This history will be written by the victor, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so, you know, you always have to go back to the basics. I think if you break down Culture Clash's work, it always talks about colonialism. And that's really the root of all problems, you know. White people went crazy from like the 15th century to about the 19th century. That was the heyday of white power, you know, and they took over the world. The British did, the Americans did, the Portuguese and the Spanish. They all went around the world and tried to take it over, you know, with religion as a tool. But they really wanted the resources, the gold, the, you know, the whatever it was, the tobacco, whatever it was, the sugar cane, all this. So, you know, white people went crazy for 400, 500 years, and now we're paying it back now. You know, now we're feeling the effects of all that colonialism coming back, and so that's what our plays are about. We're just saying, hey, you know, we have problems because, you know, you guys kind of jacked up the world about 200-300 years ago. You know,
and still not,
and it's not our problem.
Recently.
You know?
Remember the KKK marched on Washington, D.C. in the 30s.
And last week.
Yeah, so it's really recent, you know. It's really recent. You know,
yeah,
so.
And it's about capturing.
No.
I don't know, man.
I'm the worst imitator ever.
But you know, Trump's main problem is that he
sounded like Bernie Sanders. I'm the worst. Anyway, go ahead.
But I was saying that one of Trump's problems is that he suffers from internal colonization, and that is that his head is internal to his colon.
Leave the comedy to me, man.
To the experts.
So you know, what I wanted to do today was explore with you, because you guys are into it, explore with you some of the scripts we've written over the years, some of the stuff I've written over the years that explores a little about colonialization, about democracy, about all this, you know. I mean, California, you know, California has a turbulent, bloody history, you know, where Mexicans were lynched and you know, people's farms were taken away, land was taken away, you know.
And the natives were shot for sport. People don't talk about that.
There's a lot of lynchings in the Southwest. A lot of folks don't realize that more Latinos, Mexican Americans were lynched in the history of the Southwest than the entire history of slavery. So it was a real bloodbath, and we had natives and Mexican descendants standing up to the railroad. You know, they were setting the railroad on fire in New Mexico, whereas you know, women were standing up to the railroad here on the West Coast, and they were getting jailed. It's been going on till today. Basically, we still have a lot of brutality in this manifest destiny mythology.
So, yeah, I wrote a play in 2016 actually. It was called Manifest Destinitis, about the Rancho days, you know, the California days when California was in fact a Mexican territory, Northern Territory. And, you know, the Spaniards, people of Spanish descent, were basically the ones in power. The white people, again, were in power, but they owned most of the ranchos here in Northern California. And then when the 1850s, 1860s hit, you know, there was gold to be found. There was land to be found. President Andrew Jackson came up with this concept of manifest destiny, where it was God-given right for white people to head west and take over any land they wanted, you know? So imagine when you have a proposition like that, it's like, you know, anything goes.
Yeah, and so a historical footnote is de Tocqueville, when he was going down to New Orleans, he actually took a riverboat with Sam Houston, who later then went to take over Texas. And they stopped at a dock to bring on some of the natives that were being removed through Andrew Jackson's policy from the Removal Act. So there's a little crossover, but like we were saying before, he was not impressed with the treatment of the natives and the African communities. He actually said that one of the main problems with the Americans is that they can't share the continent with anybody else, and that the only two avenues for the other peoples are either slavery or extermination. And he was able to see that in the couple of months that he was here. So we really have to address that.
Mm-hmm. So so you guys mind reading a couple of pages from Manifest Destiny?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's have fun. You guys are getting too serious, way too serious. So this is a couple of Californians. Let me set it up here. Let me set it up here. This is a couple, three Californios talking together. You know, they got their big ranchos, they're sipping tequila, and they're talking about the immigrant menace, which is gringos coming from the East Coast. So this is a play that I adapted from Moliere's The Imaginary Invalid. And the Imaginary Invalid is about a guy that is that fears being, you know, he fears that he's dying, that he always has a disease. And so this guy, Don Aragon, he's a ranchero, and he thinks he has a disease as well. So he's talking to his doctor and Doña Pocha, okay? All right. Aragon here.
Okay.
Dr. Burgos, I'm afraid our young Californios are slowly losing their Spanish traditions and culture.
Yes, and if the Yankees come and bring their language, customs, and bland food, what will become of us?
Pumpernickel, mayonnaise, Birkenstocks.
What did you say?
I don't know. These strange words just blurt out of me. Sarsaparilla, Starbucks, the Clintons. Oh my God, oh my God, the devil has possessed me.
No, Don Aragon. It's some form of syndrome. Many California ranchers, such as yourself, are suffering from the same symptoms.
Yes, I'm also experiencing strange nightmares.
Nightmares?
Yes. Since the Mexican-American War began, I have been having horrific nightmares about the future.
The future?
Yes, I dreamt about an orange man with tiny little fingers and straw hair ruling the country.
An orange madman.
Yes, or sometimes I dream of an old perverted man that touches young girls and has dementia. I feel a sense of doom and uncertainty, an overwhelming fear, Doctor.
Fear? Of what?
A deep fear of losing my land, my family, our language, our Spanish culture. Tuna casserole!
Aha!
What is it, Dr. Burgos?
I have a diagnosis.
Bronchitis? Appendicitis? Odontometritis?
No, Don Aragon, you have manifest Destinitis.
Manifest Destinitis? I never heard of that.
That's because I've just named it. I've named it after the term manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny? What is that?
A vulgar philosophy held by the Americanos.
A philosophy?
Yes, the United States and its settlers believe it's their God-given destiny to expand across the North American continent and spread so-called American exceptionalism.
Well, that sounds like good old-fashioned colonialism to me.
Of course it is. We Spaniards should know. We invented colonialism.
We invented it. Ole!
The war the United States has been waging against Mexico is just a ruse to get Mexican territory for their expanding empire.
Sea to shining sea.
See.
See.
City of Pueblo has fallen, and I hear Mexico City will fall by tonight.
I have to say, Don Aragon, I'm very, very concerned about the health of our beloved Alta California.
Yeah.
I have to say, Don Aragon, I'm very concerned about the health of our beloved Alta California.
I am too, Don Tencha. I am too. Hot dog.
Excuse me?
Oh, don't mind me.
Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo does not protect Californians. Yankee settlers are storming into our borders. They want to take our land, our cattle, and our jobs. I'm afraid our golden age is coming to an end.
Yes, it has devastated my health as well.
Pilates,
Excuse me?
don't mind me. These Yankees are not sending their best people. They are gente with problems, and they're bringing those problems to us. They're
Yes.
diseases to California. They're smugglers, criminals, and rapists. Several of us rancheros. Oh, I am muted.
Oh. Are you unmuted now?
Don't mind me. These Yankees are not sending their best people. They are people with problems. They're bringing their problems to us. Their diseases to California. They're smugglers, criminals, and rapists. Several of us rancheros have talked about building a giant adobe across the Colorado River and through the Sierra Nevada. And best of all, the Yankees will pay for it.
We'll pay for it. Okay, that was good, Doña Pocha. You're fired.
No, we had a mute problem.
Yeah, mute. Yes. So that's a funny sketch. It's a sketch of. What I did there. Is I took Trump's infamous speech from 2015 that he did in New York about Mexicans, and I gave it to a Californio. In the 19th century, because see, this is my philosophy. My philosophy is that power corrupts everybody. I think whoever's in power is afraid of losing that power. So, 200 years ago, we were in power. The Californios were in power, and over the Indios, over the mestizos, over the Mexicanos, dark Mexicanos, the Indios. And when the Yankee, explorer, gold miner from the East Coast came in looking for land and gold, well, he became the interloper. He became the evil immigrants, right? But the problem was that we didn't have a wall. The problem is we did not kick them out as soon as we could, and we should have, but we didn't. Manifest destiny was, in fact, too strong to keep the hordes from coming in. And now we have, and that's why we have Murrieta, California.
Yeah, and I actually have a theory, because there's a lot of talk right now about genetically encoded trauma, that the trauma of past generations is passed to us in our genes, in our memories. I think that the same holds for atrocities, that if people were committing atrocities, then they have a genetic history and memory of that, which I think is why some of these, supremacists and whatnot, they're really afraid of immigrants coming over and killing and raping and whatever, because in their genes,
they have a genetic guilty conscience.
Yeah, I think alcoholism is part of that too.
And republicanism, I think, also, as well. So, hey, you were in San Francisco in kind of a real, epic time. I mean, we were talking about the gentrification of the city now and how it's changed over the years. And I know that people are really working to create solutions on how to just maintain livability. There are nonprofits who work with the city to buy buildings, to have rent control for artists, which is very revolutionary. But there are real solutions out there to these problems. Tell us what it was like growing up in the 60s.
Oh, San Francisco was an amazing place to grow up. It was a working class city, always was, and it was a great place for Latino families to buy a home and to grow up in. It was a very multicultural city at the time. As an artist, I grew up in the Mission District in the 60s, 70s, in the 70s, and it was a haven for artists because you were able to, rent a flat, a Victorian flat with a couple of other people, paying $200-300 a month, and that was it. You were able to practice your work and do artwork in the community that you lived. And that's when, we had Galeria de la Raza there, we had the Mission Cultural Center, and these were the La Raza Silk Screen Center, places like this where I worked in, because they were open to the public, they were open to young artists like me where I could develop. And Culture Clash was born at Galeria de la Raza on 24th and Bryant in a little small gallery, 50-seat gallery, and that, that dream started there. you know, and there was nothing like us at the time. And then El Teatro Campesino heard about us, brought us to El Teatro Campesino. We toured under their umbrella. And then little by little, we started writing plays like The Mission, and then we went to the intersection of the arts, and little by little, people started producing us. The Asian American Theater in San Francisco produced us. And then we eventually went to Los Angeles because we found a very big audience of Latinos there, hungry for something Latino. You know, not since Zoot Suit was anything really happening in LA. So when we came down here, it opened a lot of doors for us.
Yeah, and you guys became a really important part of the community. You did, you know, you're not just a theater, but did the Big Top Locos concerts?
Yes. Besides, yes. You know, we had a television show there for a little bit on Fox Networks. We did 30 shows. We were the executive producers and wrote some of the sketches. You know, we hired all the writers for it. We had Lalo Alcaraz was a part of it, and Josefina Lopez was in it. You know, Rick Nájera was a writer. So a lot of people were writing on our show. And so we got some fame here in LA for a bit, and we used that fame we did some fundraising concerts for Chiapas. So we did two concerts called Big Top Loco concerts. Richard headed those, and they're really popular. We hired Rage Against the Machine, Cypress Hill, those bands, Tijuana No. They were at their height when we produced them in LA. They were fantastic concerts.
Was it at the Mayan as well, like the show?
No, we did these we did these outdoors at the LA. I forget what it was called. It was where they do the boxing matches.
The Olympic Forum?
Yeah, the Olympic. Yeah. Yeah.
They used to have big riots there back in the 60s, or so I've heard.
LA. So LA has been a big part of our life. We lived there. You know, Rick and Richard still live there. I moved to San Diego only about 6 years ago, where I'm a Playwright-in-Residence at the San Diego Rep.
Yeah, and you just did a piece called Bad Omens and Wives, got really, really good reviews.
Yes. Yeah, it's also a Molière play that I adapted into Narcos 90s telenovela world.
And I'm really glad you're finding inspiration from French authors, because, you know, we really believe we need to come, you know, at peace about Cinco de Mayo. So, you know, we got to come together again.
Yes. Those damn bolillos that we inherited the bolillos thanks to the French.
Yes. And if we had a combination of the mariachi hat and the beret, it would be awesome. Totally awesome. But hey, so you grew up around the hippies, right?
The yippies.
Yeah, my brother Ruben, he was 10 years older than me, and he grew up in the Haight-Ashbury. And you know, I was 10 years old, you know, walking around the Haight-Ashbury. I was going, what the hell's going on here, you know? But I loved it, you know. The Beatles' White Album had just come out, you know, and it was like something was in the air, you know, and it smelled a lot like skunk. So, you know, I saw him taking acid with girls and running around, you know, naked. It was amazing for a 10-year-old to experience this, you know. So, but those influences, the hippies, the whole counterculture movement, I think was a very big influence on me and my work, you know, because I still believe the hippies were right, you know. And I think, you know, now that we're sequestered and you know, we see that by slowing down capitalism, by slowing down everything, you become more human, you know, more giving. And so I think they're still right, you know, and I still subscribe to that philosophy of peace and love and peace. I really do, you know.
And halfway across the country at that time, you also had the yippies.
Yeah. Yeah, the yippies were like they were kind of like the radical revolutionary arm of the hippies, you know. The hippies were pretty sedate as far as politics, you know, was concerned. But the Yippies were founded by Abbie Hoffman, Jerry Rubin, and these guys wanted revolution. They wanted revolution, but not through guns, but through through the mind, through theatrical acts. These guys were doing crazy. They did Occupy before. They occupied the Pentagon in 1968. They surrounded the Pentagon and they wanted to levitate it. So of course the press came to document this craziness, but they were able to talk about the Vietnam War. Why were they trying to levitate the Pentagon? Well, they were protesting the Vietnam War. Abbie Hoffman ran a pig. He ran a pig for president, and he put him on the ballot and stuff. So, of course, this gets press.
Yeah.
So these guys were geniuses about getting press and getting their message across, because this was before social media, where you sneeze and everybody knows, right?
Pegasus for president.
But back then it was harder to do anything. So these guys got a lot of press for their movement.
Yeah.
Abbie Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and what was his forget his name. He was married to Jane Fonda.
Hayden.
Yeah, Tom Hayden. They were convicted for the 1968 Democratic riots in Chicago, Democratic Convention. They were accused of instigating riots outside the Democratic Convention in Chicago, 1968. Of course, and it was a big trial. It was a big trial. Of course, they all got acquitted because they were really framed.
And they were white.
So I really got into Abbie Hoffman and his politics. People discount him as a crazy guy, but he really was ahead of his time. He was ahead of Occupy, and he was ahead of social media.
Yeah.
He was really a pioneer, So
before the yes men,
Yeah.
But what an inspiration.
And he talked about big government. He talked about a right-wing government. He talked about big banks, and he talked about big pharmacy. This was in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And he was talking about all these things way before anybody was talking about him. But everybody thought he was crazy, that he was a radical, right?
And Paul Bible reminds us that his book was called Steal This Book. People stole it.
Yeah, Steal This Book. It was called Steal This Book, and hippies would actually go to the bookstores and steal the book.
Yes, I worked at a bookstore, and that book got stolen a lot.
And the whole book was the whole book was about how you could survive free in America, by going to happy hour and eating the tacos at the buffet table and stuff. But we got to realize though. But one thing where I'm critical is that the Yippies were white guys. Okay, these guys were white, college privileged guys, smart as hell guys. But they were white privileged guys, and they used their privilege in order to get their politics across. Because Abbie Hoffman, he went down to Wall Street with a bomb, with this fake bomb, right, like a prop bomb. And it was like a black ball with a mecha, and it said bomb on it, right? And of course they arrested him. Yeah, mecha, yeah. And of course they arrested him, but he wasn't. He wasn't shot on. He wasn't shot on the spot. Imagine if it was Huey Newton or one of those guys, Black Panther guy, going down Wall Street with a bomb. You think they would let him live? No.
No, they couldn't walk down Wall Street with a sandwich without getting shot.
Yeah. So right before Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016, I wrote a play called Steal Heaven about Abbie Hoffman as the St. Peter's in heaven for radicals. In other words, if a radical died in America, they would go to heaven, and Abbie Hoffman would vet them and find out if they were good enough to go back to Earth to wreak more lefty havoc. You guys want to read a couple of pages of that?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Si se puede, si se puede.
So this is a scene between Abbie Hoffman and Tish. Tish has just been she's just been assassinated or killed at an Occupy rally, and now she's in heaven. And and what does she ask? She's asked, well, "Why me?" Right?
Yeah. I'm just a grassroots organizer. Why'd you pick me? Why am I getting a second chance?
All rebel rousers deserve a second chance. God sent Jesus down to earth 2,000 years ago to be the first long-hair hippie radical. Think about it. He preached free love, free food, no money, love thy neighbor. He hung out with lepers, hookers, and crooks. Then Pontius Pilate said, screw this guy. He's a pain in the ass. People are listening to this kook. Let's crucify him. Make him an example. So you see, they have a soft spot for radicals up here. In a sense, we're doing God's work.
Meanwhile, the right does crazier shit using his name. They bomb women's clinics, hate gays. It's a mess.
Yeah, meanwhile, the married congressman is getting blown in a public toilet in Arizona by Ramona, the illegal drag queen. God hates those hypocrites. They're not getting into heaven. No way. They're haters. They're greedy and they kill. I'll never send back people that have killed.
Never.
Never. No way. But I'm going too fast. Hey, you want a beer?
Sure. Schlitz? Tastes like piss.
I know, right? Of all the beers in the universe, we get Schlitz. Go figure.
Shit. Now my phone is dead? I charged this morning.
No Wi-Fi up here, honey. Only no Wi-Fi up here. Only lo-fi. Okay. So this is a test. Which pillow do you want? Che Guevara or Cheech Marin?
Why not both?
Good choice. That was a trick question. So, you were the last radical in America. People thought you were crazy. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they called us crazy too. We were white middle-class boys that would have worked for Xerox, but instead we went down south to support our black brothers and sisters and get our noses broken. They couldn't understand our motives, our madness.
They call nonconformity and free thinking a mental illness.
Yep.
The huge pharmaceutical companies have successfully sedated 3/4 of the population.
Yep. Nip the crazies in the bud. Today you can't produce free thinkers like Ken Kesey, Huey Newton, Dolores Huerta if they're on Prozac.
And then the controlled media distorts everything we do in a matter of seconds. They distorted, ridiculed, and discredited the Occupy movement.
Yeah, we got really excited here when that was happening. It was groovy. Finally, people marching, taking over parks and plazas like the 60s. We thought the revolution had ignited. But what the fuck happened?
A lot of things continue and keep happening.
Yeah? Where were your leaders?
Well, a lot of leaders came out of it and continued.
Where was the focus?
We were focused. We were united on ending the wars in Iran, in Afghanistan, stopping the Wall Street bailout, the auto bailout.
Yeah. And corporate personhood and financial campaign support to politicians, tax the rich, create jobs, go green, blah, 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 blah.
That's not very
Guess
nice.
what, 99%? It ain't gonna happen.
That's not very nice.
So who are you? Why do you do this?
Why?
Why do you scream in the wilderness? Come on, I want to know. I want to know what I got to work with here. I want to know what you're made out of. Why do you protest?
It's complicated.
No, it's not. It's not complicated. Tell me. Go on,
Well, you know,
tell me.
protesting is as American as apple pie. Okay, our founding fathers were revolutionaries. All the significant changes in history, the right for women to vote, the 40-hour work week, the Civil Rights Act, gay rights, they were all fought for and won when the people took to the streets and forced our leaders to change. But today, well, change, you know, it comes from the bottom up, from agitators, from dissidents. But today, we're so shell-shocked, so abused that we've become complacent, apathetic, and worst of all, we feel powerless. We know the system's broken. We know it's rigged. And somehow we're okay with that. I say screw it. We the people have to take it back. It's the American thing to do.
All right. All right. You're not a schmuck after all. Okay, you can stay in heaven and I'll train you. And I'll send you back to wreak more lefty havoc.
All right, let's hear it for the not ready.
Wow, we're doing Zoom theater, people. Thank you.
No, that was great. I remember we went to see Steel Heaven when it premiered in San Diego, and it was really beautiful. The crowds loved it, but really, I mean, centering that idea of the revolution still being alive, because when you look at protests today, they're much, much bigger than they were in the 60s. They're much more well organized. They're global. There are hundreds of thousands of people marching for women's rights, again, for the pipeline sustained. But it seems like we're not winning. So the problem is just how do we make that change? And I think that the next generation, you know, is ready to do it. You know, all of our generations are ready to do it, but the system is a lot more complex. You know, even with this coronavirus aid package.
Well, Abbie Hoffman
It diffuses everything.
Well,
When you're
Abbie
just
Hoffman predicted that the right would be more radical and more outrageous and crazy than the left, and they did. They really did out crazy us, right?
yeah,
I
the
mean, look
tiki
at our
torches,
president.
tiki torch
We
Nazis.
have a shock jock as a president, right? And he
Yeah.
predicted that, you know, that we would have a right-wing shock jock as a president, something, you know, where democracy and morality and decency are just out the door, you know. And you know, that's why I got excited, and I wrote this right before the emergence of Bernie Sanders as a candidate, you know. And when he emerged, I'm going, oh my God, this is the candidate that I've been waiting for all my life. He's you know, when you read some of the platforms of the yippies, they're just like Bernie's platforms, exactly. You know, free healthcare, free education, you know, all these things, Green Deal, all this. They were already talking about it 50 years ago. This is 45 years ago, before Bernie Sanders. And so when Bernie came around, man, I got really excited, you know, and I know a lot of the people on this feed got excited. And, you know, but the machine is so big, it's so big that it just devoured our movement. It devoured Bernie's movement. You know, he was trying to do it the right way, going through the right channels, being a Democrat, the whole 9 yards. And even then he couldn't get his message across. So, you know, I'm really disillusioned, you know, but you know, we got to keep fighting, you know, we got to keep fighting. And this is a platform that we're doing right now. And so I'm so happy to be ranting here right now.
But I think people aren't, I mean, they're upset, but I think they're also angered. And people like Ocasio-Cortez and people in the next generation, all these people that were, you know, stumping for Bernie, they're going to run for office themselves.
Yes, there is Bernie Kratz, right? There is he did start a revolution. You know, he really did. And a lot of, you know, change does happen from the bottom up. Yeah. So, you know, we have to get our councilmen in there, you know, our neighborhood councilmen, our city councilmen, persons, I don't mean men, you know, congresspersons, and then we go up and up and up. And eventually we'll have a president like AOC, but I don't see it happening in my lifetime.
Well, what would Bernie's Chicano brother have to say about that?
Yeah. Hola, Raza. I am Bernardo Sanders. I am Bernie's half Chicano brother. You know, he lives in Vermont. I live in Laverne. Go figure. He's Jewish. I'm Chicano. So I'm kind of like a cashew. I'm half Jewish, half Chicano. I'm a cashew. Half Catholic, half Jewish. I'm a Chicano. No. Anyway, I need my wig. Anyway, yeah, I did some videos of Bernardo Sanders. Yeah, he was Bernie's East LA brother.
Well, you know, one thing that's kind of troubles me about what we're seeing today is actually something that you guys specialize in with Culture Clash, is that we're trying to make sense of these right-wing extremists and supremacists, and the Christians that are out there, just who knows what's in their head. But in Culture Clash's work, you actually go out of your way to interview people on that side that are not like you, to find out what makes them tick. So can you tell us about what you've learned interviewing light up the border types and supremacists and such?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't understand a thing you said. No, you're right. We've for many years we went around the country interviewing people, and we didn't want to interview people that thought like us. We got that covered. We wanted to interview people that were totally against us, and I wanted to know how they ticked. And you got to remember, people are people. They might, they discount us as crazy. We can't discount them as crazy, because for some reason, I don't know what happened in their life. They grew up abused, or, you grew up with a father that would hit you and say the N-word every 10 minutes. I mean, if you grow up like that, you're going to end up like that. Let's just be honest. That's, so I feel like a lot of people grew up, not knowing any better. It's ignorance, it's abuse, it's drug use, alcoholism. You grow up with like that, you're going to grow up with a sixth sense of what's right and wrong,
Yeah, and
you gotta, we gotta give these people a voice on stage, because that's the only way we're going to start a dialogue, is to know where they're coming from.
I think these people grew up with white Jesus.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I've always felt that, like, when you look at what the supremacists are afraid of, they're afraid of the government taking away their rights and their land. They're afraid of the government putting them in jail, erasing their history. I thought, man, with taking their guns, I figured, when did they join Mecha? Come on, we should be on the same side. We're afraid of those things too. It's exactly the same thing we're afraid of. We could be a good team together.
You got to go back to the origins. Again, colonialism. We, as a Latinos, we grew up Catholic, right? We grew up with a Christian religion usually. And, even our, when if you would have asked me when I was a little boy, what color is Jesus? Well, he's white. He's got blue eyes, and he looks like a Tab Hunter, So, and what is an American? Well, an American looks like John Wayne. These are the images. This is how we grew up, and these are the imagery that's ingrained in our mentality and in our DNA. So it's going to take centuries to get rid of that, Now I'm going to go. Now we interviewed this black preacher from Alabama, and he said something really interesting. He went like this. Now you have a black kid from the South who grows up in the South and goes off to college someplace up north to study some geography and whatnot. Yes, geography. He or she will then soon realize that Jesus was over there in the Middle East and so forth and so on. And then you got to ask yourself, well, if Jesus is blonde and blue-eyed, how did he get over there? How can they get it inside their heads without any sense of geography to conclude that Jesus was a white man? It's an impossibility. An impossibility. Now, as a preacher, as a man of God, I don't care what he was. Don't care what he was. Growing up here in Alabama in the church, for anyone to suggest that Jesus was black or brown would have been awful. Desecration of the image of Christ. Desecration of the image of Christ. But when you begin to study all the Eurocentric theologies, the essence of divinity, the way Jesus was presented to us, going way back to the old engravings and carvings and sculptures and so on, then you might want to ask, well, if Jesus was, how did Jesus go from looking like Osama bin Laden to Brad Pitt? The Jesus who was presented to us was a lie. why Jesus was a lie, the original fake news. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Wow, the original fake news. I love that. And you know, you're lucky because your vision of Jesus was Tab Hunter. Generation X had Willem Dafoe. So
Yeah, I had Junkie Jesus.
Junkie Jesus.
Yeah, Junkie Jesus. And he was all worked over, was bloody. Santa
Salute
Ana
everybody.
Jesus.
Salute
He
everybody.
suffered.
It's happy hour somewhere.
all right, and we had the Black Velvet Jesus in Tijuana next to the Elvis, and the Moreno Batman.
They say that the future will be run by kids that were homeschooled by day drinkers. That's our future.
I believe it.
And you can quote him on that.
My daughter Belen, that's what she's getting. She's getting schooled by a day drinker.
So, I mean, your career has gone by the last 35 years. I remember when you guys were, I think it was at Comedy Fiesta. Was that the name?
Yeah, Comedy Fiesta was the first name, Culture Clash. Yeah, you know, when Rene Yanez, rest in peace, when he had this idea to bring Marga Gomez, Monica Palacios, Richard Montoya, and me together.
And Tony Burciaga.
1984, to do a comedy show for Cinco de Mayo. No one had done that, you know, and so he just called it generically Comedy Fiesta. So that was Culture Clash's original name, Comedy Fiesta, for 1 year. And then when we did the 1 year anniversary of it at Galeria La Raza, Rene Yanez came up with the word Culture Clash, which is so 80s, right? It's so 80s. Right? The Clash, Culture Club.
Oh, so the Culture Clash is a mixture of Culture Club and the Clash. I like it.
Which I'm cool with. I like those two bands. You know, they're so diametrically opposed, right? And I think that's what Culture Clash is all about. We're not just talking about the culture between us and the mainstream culture. We're also talking about the culture between Latinos. You know, the culture clash between Latinos. You know, like I've always said that. What's the difference between a Mexican and a Cuban? $30,000 a year, you know?
It's also a Hispanic and a Chicano, yeah. That's funny.
It's also confidence.
Yeah. And drugs. So you've seen a lot, you've traveled the country, you've interviewed people, you've been all over, you've seen the decades come and go. You've seen Abbie Hoffman's pig be elected to the presidency in this last election. What does Dreamocracy look like to you? If you were to say, looking over the lay of the land in politics and history in the future, what would you want in Dreamocracy?
Well, you know,
Tell us your dream.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, first of all, because I'm not a good articulator, you know. I don't like to talk about I like to do the work because I think the work speaks for itself a little better than I can, you know. So I want to read this poem that a friend, Richard Talavera from San Francisco, wrote, and then I kind of tweaked it a little bit. But check this out. I got to put. Yeah, that's a better background. I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven with Neanderthals, samurai, and wives. And if I remember living, it's like having a small itch or humming something while you remember something else or forget something else. It really doesn't matter because in heaven, everything, everyone is equal. When I died, there was such an unraveling of consciousness. The sound of the gun exploding was sustained throughout time. Who was I while I was alive? Was I black? Was I a woman? Was I a man? I don't remember. I said to myself, I'm an American. And in that same precious instant, I asked myself, what is an American? I don't remember. There ain't no flags in heaven. There ain't no walls in heaven. Everyone here seems to be black, Latino, young. I found very few Americans here. Everybody here seems to be black, Latino, Arab, Chinese, queer. So I guess heaven is like earth. In America, was becoming more like heaven every day. But I didn't see it that way while I was alive. No, I was blinded by fear, by prejudice. Everything I remember, everything I forget. I'm still unraveling all these things that I will remember, and all these things burning into forget. That is America to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's awesome, and I think speaking of America, I really want to mention in this particular conversation, the elders who taught us, those who we learned from, who fought the fight when there were fewer doors open, that created some of those avenues and doors, because they're starting to pass. And so we just wanted to, I know this was important to you also, to have a moment for Diane Rodriguez, who passed this past week. So, but you also were really inspired by Pedro Pietri from the Nuyorican Poets Cafe.
Yeah, Pedro Pietri. He, we're inspired by the poets. We wherever we go, we look for the poets. The poets are our nectar. Not only do we interview the people of the streets and other people, but we also interview the poets, because I think the poets have always had the pulse of the community. So he wrote a play. He wrote an epic poem called Puerto Rican Obituary. Juan, Miguel, Olga, Manuel will right now be doing their own thing, where beautiful people sing and dance and work together, where you do not need a dictionary to communicate with your people. Aquí se habla español all the time. Aquí you salute your flag first.
Yeah.
Aquí to be called negrito means to be called love. I've been expecting you guys.
El reverendo Pedro Pietri?
You wrote Puerto Rican Obituary?
Yeah, that's right. Who's asking?
My father told me all about you and your poems.
Yeah, who's your father, man?
Jose Montoya.
Great, man. Yeah. I know your pops, man. He was a terrific poet, man. Solid cat. Yeah, he was a pilot extraordinaire for the Royal Chicano Air Force. Yeah, they flew Adobe airplanes with us one night in the Bronx, man, with Miguel Piñero. Jose Montoya, chronicler of his Chicano people. Rest in peace.
Indeed, thank you for that. We joked once, Piñero and I.
As hunger denizens careen through Loisaida avenues, weaving Chicano, Boricua tales of survival.
Ricardo Sanchez, yet another Chicano poet.
That's right, man. That's right. So
Come
you
on,
know
too
that one,
soon.
huh? Hey, you guys want some smoke?
Yes, no, yeah.
All right, that's cool. More for me then, shit. See, I got glaucoma from man, so I got to smoke weed for medicinal purposes. But even if I didn't have glaucoma, I'd still smoke weed. Free grass for the working class. Don't let the system kick your ass.
Beautiful poem. Another classic.
What do you guys want, man?
We came to interview you.
Interview me? No, I interview you. Understood?
Yeah.
Here, take these. You're going to need them. Take
What
these,
are
man.
they?
Those are your Puerto Rican passports.
Oh.
Directly from the Puerto Rican embassy.
That's dope shit, man.
So what do you think?
Passports.
Yeah, from the Puerto Rican embassy.
Puerto Rican embassy doesn't really exist, does it?
It does exist, man. What the fuck's wrong with you? See, it's that defeatist attitude that has us in this limbo welfare state. Fuck it, man. We're free. In order to be free, you got to start thinking free. Dig?
Dig.
Just fucking with you, man. Hey, you want to buy some of these paintings?
Are these your paintings?
Yeah, man. I paint them black.
Yeah.
They're all black, man. It's my dark series. I paint them black, even the frames. People give me their portraits, I paint black over them. See, I always dress in black. That's because I'm dead.
You're dead?
Yeah, I was killed in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive.
Right.
See, my father, he was a Puerto Rican nationalist. My mother was a Republican. So I have this fucked up loyalty towards America. But I went to Nam and I realized that we were not there to help, to liberate. Nah, man. We were there to kill, to rape, to maim. So I got killed, but I refused to die.
What do you say? Why do you stay homeless under the bridge and shit?
No, I choose to live here, man, among the dead. See, we're all dead, but we refuse to die. You see that guy over there? He was a scientist of systematic forms. He died in a lab. He lost his mind. He's dead, but he refuses to die. You see that little guy over there? University student, killed in Chile, 1973 by Pinochet. He died twice, but he refuses to die. You see my sister over there on that homeless lady with the bags on that bench? Yeah, she used to be an RN, a registered nurse, but she's dead because her country could not afford a freaking mask. She's dead, but she refuses to die. We're all dead, but we refuse to die.
What happened to her?
End of scene. End of scene.
Okay, end of scene.
Pocha.
Yeah.
Pocha. It's end of scene. End of scene, I say. End of scene.
And scene.
And scene.
All right. Well, thank you, Herbert. That's powerful. That was from New Eurekan Stories, right?
Yes. Originally, yes. And now it ends. Culture Clash, Still in America, which we were performing in this March at Berkeley Rep, and we were in the middle of a 52 show production, and then around March 16th or so, March 12th or so, they shut down our show. We were like only on our second week of doing the show at Berkeley Rep.
Yeah.
Anybody out there that saw the Culture Clash Still in America, raise your hand. I know there's some people out there.
There's people out there. Raise your hand if you saw Culture Clash Still in America here in Orange County, San Diego.
We were like, so Culture Clash is back. We really been, we were dormant there for a couple of years, but Diane Rodriguez, okay, let's talk about Diane, bless her soul. About 18 months ago, 2 years ago, she approached us saying, hey, I want to direct your old show, Border Town, for Pasadena Playhouse. And we said, yeah, let's update it, because a lot of new stuff is, of course, happened. It's not like the border situation got better, right? In 20 years, it got worse. So we wrote a play called Border Town Now, which was a lot of old stuff and new stuff. And we updated the old stuff. And so were we able to, the best thing about it, though, the best memory about it is that we were able to work with Diane Rodriguez, one of her last shows that she directed. Yeah, so that was a real treat.
Yeah, and no, I was here for Diane, and I know that a lot of people.
Can we have like a 30-second silence for her? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to unmute everybody in a second, and we're going to thank you guys. or have you guys ask you to give a applause to Herbert. Then we're going to open it up to questions. So, like I said, we're going to do the gallery view, and then I'll just pick people. So if your voice gets called, then go ahead and ask your question. So let me first unmute you all. Let's hear a big round of applause for Herbert Sigüenza, our guest today. All righty. So who has a question? Let's see. Raise your hand if you have a question. Do I see any questions out there? This is your chance to talk to Comedy Chameleon Herbert. Yes, or I'll call on people. Rob Garcia, do you have a question? Good?
I'm going to switch. Or can you hear me now?
I cannot hear you.
I'm going to switch.
Okay. He looks like he has a question. Very attentive to this conversation.
Anybody have a question?
Rob Garcia, San Antonio.
Yeah, it's not so much a question. Thank you for all your years of entertaining and bringing political humor as well to the masses. And I've seen you several times. I'm from San Antonio, and I'm sure you know my sister Victoria. San Antonio, well, we're at the Guadalupe. And,
Oh, yeah.
I met you guys several times. One of my comments that I really liked, one of my favorite old-time culture clash ones was Stand and Deliver Pizza.
Stand and Deliver Pizza.
Is there a sketch? Is there a scene or a sketch that you remember?
Well, he was talking about Stand and Deliver Pizza.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a culture clash trait, to mash up stuff, we take one film and mash it up with another film, or one genre and another genre and mash it up. I think that's always been a big trait of culture clash, and it's a big trait on my writing as well. I just find it exciting when two opposing views or two opposing genres are matched up together. Hey, Charles.
Hey, I wonder if I can.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So I really love this.
I just want to introduce you, Charles. Charles is a good friend of mine from San Diego. I met him a couple of years ago. He's a mutual friend of Michael Arabian, a director from LA. And Charles is an amazing poet and writer as well. So a very good friend of mine now. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, I really love this presentation. And I was also very interested in how you guys in Culture Clash got together to actually make a kind of self-critique theater where you're always turning stuff back on itself and adding a complexity that normally you don't see in political theater. So how did you arrive at that point of view with three people together? So this is exactly what we want to do.
I think a lot of it had to do with we just didn't take ourselves seriously,
Yeah.
We didn't know any better. We weren't, academics. We weren't, political gadflies, that had an agenda, because there's nothing worse than bad political theater. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, sure.
There's nothing worse than bad agitprop. So we didn't want to do that. We just wanted to tell the truth. We just said what was on our minds, And usually if you're just honest, you'll see that you transcend culture, you transcend politics, you transcend everything, because you're talking about the condition, the human condition. And, we're just reporting the truth through our own lens, which happens to be a Latino Chicano lens, And that's the way I see it. I don't see it as more complicated than that.
Well, I think you have a fabulous sense of knowing when the audience is, when you're getting behind the audience, in the sense of losing them because they anticipate what you're going to say next or something like that? So you
Yes.
turn it before it shrinks away, and you add that twist, adds that next spark that makes them.
Yes, it's a surprise.
bend in
So what we call is it's a surprise. It's doing, yes, it's flipping it on its head. Just when you think,
right,
yeah, just when
exactly.
you think
Flip the script.
yes,
Right.
yes. I think
Right,
that is,
right.
yeah. And again, it goes back to not taking it so serious, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we'll be talking about something real serious, and then we'll have a fart joke right after it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I get it.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Raise your hand, or I'll pick you. Lorraine, do you have a question?
How did you know?
I can feel it.
I do.
You had your virtual hand up.
I didn't even do anything, but you kind of felt it. Mine is more like a trivia question that I think maybe only you and now Renee, who has passed, could have answered. Years ago, when you were trying out the Prince character, when you were first trying it out, the first time you put that wig on, and me and Renee were standing there, and you were putting on those fishnet stockings, and you threw yourself on the floor and started riding around in character. I was wondering, what year was that? Because I remember the three of us were just laughing, bent over laughing, and that is etched in my mind, and I'm just curious, what year was that?
Yeah, Lorraine, who's a beautiful artist and poet as well from San Francisco. We go way back. You know, we started in 1984, and that was, you know, that was the year Purple Rain. You know, Purple Rain came out. Prince was huge, and one of my fortes even back then was just doing characters, you know, imitations. So I did, you know, Julio Iglesias, you know, and I did Prince. I did even Michael Jackson, you know, and in blackface. And I know, you know what? I don't care. I don't care what you say. I did blackface in the 80s, and it was okay.
But you do a lot of African characters too. I mean, you.
Yeah, but I don't do blackface anymore.
Neither does Michael Jackson.
But yeah, Prince was like my alter ego, you know. He really was, and so when I put on those fishnet stockings, man, and the wig, and did my little mustache, oh my God, I felt so sexy and so powerful, you know. And it was just my way of letting loose, you know.
I just remember you being in character, having such a difficult time putting on fishnet stockings. You know, women know kind of how to do that, but you were and I was just breaking up laughing because you literally dropped to the floor and then just were writhing around. And so, yeah, thanks for just giving me the general idea of the timeline, but I know it was early.
Yeah, it was 84, 85. Yeah, 86 maybe. Yeah, I did Prince for a while.
That's right. All right, do we have another question? Raise your hand, or I'll call you. Christina Frias, do you have a question? No question? Albert Ornelas.
I don't, but hi, Herbert. Hi, Guillermo.
Hi.
Where's Guillermo? ¿Cómo está, Peña? Anyway, just thank you. Hi, Guillermo. Just sending all love. Thank you for hosting this. I think these gatherings are so essential to our well-being right now. Bringing up Diane, the great, immense artistic force and human she was in the world, is very meaningful. And this, just holding space for all of us. This is like I got dressed up. This is my Friday night outing. I made my drink. And I'm just thankful for a place to commune with artists. I don't really have, I was looking at your Hell Round, Herbert, the article that came out. And, you know, I don't know, for those of us who haven't read it, you know, this idea of the future of theater, you know, what comes, I know you're hosting your noontime or lunchtime conversations, and just curious. I don't know if you've touched on yet.
No, we haven't touched on that. Good question. You know, the thing is, Christina, that we just don't know, you know, we don't know what it's going to be. But you know what? It's not our problem. This is like Latinos we've always created our own work, you know. We got to go back to Galeria La Raza again, you know. We got to go back to the galleries. We got to go back to the cafes, you know, with a limited number. Maybe it's only 50 people, you know, but you know, this is a problem for the big theaters. Oh, you know, we can't do theater because we, you know, can't get 300 people in here, you know. And you know what? That's not our problem. Right? It's not your problem. It's not my problem.
And that's an opportunity that exists today that if you would have asked me a month ago if we could do these conversations, it would have all been about space rental and availability. But now we can get on the internet and we've formed this community that has been with us for 20, 30 years and all over the country. When we had the conversation with Guillermo last week, there were people from all over the world, from New Zealand, Australia, Brazil.
It took the coronavirus to get us to do this, right? You know what I'm saying? This is now a new aesthetic. This is a new thing that we're just discovering 2 weeks ago, you know? I wasn't on Zoom 3 weeks ago. Now, you know, I'm zooming. And, you know, Guillermo Gomez was great last week. So he inspired me to say, hey, I got to go for it, you know? And so we'll see what happens. But again, we're going to have to do, you know, I miss doing live theater. There's nothing like people in the room, you know, human beings in life, you know, real bodies on stage. We're never going to substitute that, ever. That's just ancient as the Greeks, right? So, but we have to kind of start over, you know,
Yeah,
and that's good. That's a good thing.
I think so. Hearing that probably as we transition into gathering again, they're saying like, you know, 50 people max for a while, maybe for the next year, which I think speaking to what you're saying. So it's like we're back at the Mission Cultural Center or the Galeria or the cafe scene. Like, what is that going to inspire and create?
Yes. And I think that will also inspire the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then we're not going to be writing for the mainstream regional audience, gringo audience. We're going to be writing for those 50 people, those community members that are around us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how Culture Clash started. We started small, right? We were just being real inside. We were inside. You know, we were talking, you know, what we know. Now, you know, now we're mainstream, you know, whatever. That's fine. You know, we paid our dues. But hopefully other Culture Clashes start, other Guillermo Gomez Peña start. You know, this is a good breeding ground for that.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have more questions? I see Darren De Leon in the audience. Do you have a question?
Sold out.
What? Okay, Darren De Leon. So
Victoria Garcia. I came in late.
Hi, Victoria.
Hi.
I love your altar in the back or whatever.
Thank you.
Okay, so who else do we have? Paul Dybel, do you have a question? No question?
I was wondering, what was your experience like on Gentefied, Herbert?
Oh, yeah, thank you for asking. I think that's a really great show. I think it's great because, again, it started small. It started, you know how it started? It started as a little video, what do you call it? A web series, right? It was done with no budget. A couple of Latinx writers, young Latinx writers from East LA, got a camera, their iPhone. I don't know how they did it, but they did a web series. Then it got the attention of Netflix, and now it's a show. So, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. And I like the show because it's written, and it's, you know, it's written for Latinos. They're not thinking, oh, will this appeal to people in Kansas? No, fuck that, you know? And you know what? It is a hit. It's one of their biggest hits.
Yep.
Cool.
The more specific you are, the more specific you are about your culture, the more universal it is.
Yeah.
And that's where Hollywood, Latino Hollywood gets it all wrong, right? They always think that, you know, the sexy, you know, Cuban girl with an accent is what's happening. You know, the macho lover, blah, 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 blah. You know, with accents. You know, that's so old school, dude.
Yeah, and talking about hits and authenticity, I mean, we should talk a bit about your dual role in Coco, because that blew the box office out of the water.
Yeah, that was a comment. That was definitely a comment that came out of nowhere. They did a great job with Coco, but you know why? Because they hired a lot of consultants. Like Lalo and Dan Guerrero and a bunch of people, Marcela, and they just they brought in a lot of people from everywhere, and they said, hey, we got this script, we have this movie we want to do about your culture. What do you think? Is it authentic enough? Is it good? Give us notes. They did their homework and they did it right, and they asked permission. They asked the community's permission. Can we do this? And we said, yeah, you can, because you're doing it right. And so the only reason I'm in that movie is that while I was a consultant, I was up in Pixar, right? With all the producers, and I'm like, hey, I can do voices, and they're like, oh yeah, that guy's good, yeah. We'll call you. And sure enough, a month later, they called me saying, hey, come up to Pixar Emeryville to do a couple of voices.
Well, props to you on that project and all the consultants, because the reality is that a lot of Latino themed projects are selling, and you're right, the authenticity is there. There's a lot of Spanish language series being produced by Netflix. We can't forget Roma. We talked about that in another conversation. That if money is like the defining entry, to buy your ticket into democracy, that argument that Latinos and African Americans and Asians don't have it, Black Panther and Crazy Rich Asians, they've dispelled that myth. So there's no excuse for keeping them out, keeping us out. And there's a lot of Latina producers that are really making some amazing programming. Even the person who's in charge of production of the Marvel films is a Latina. So any way we can get in there and change that system, this is the time to do it. The numbers are there. The content is there. And you guys all out there are creating content too. Now, I saw Larry Bogart in the audience. Do you have a question, Larry?
Hey, Guillermo, I'd like to hear from you, man.
I'll come.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just very touched. I'm feeling very sentimental lately.
¿Por qué?
We're at war with the virus and at war with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like Micah Espinosa told me yesterday. No, I wanted to ask you, Carnalito del Alma, any more advice of how to survive the apocalypse, the pandemic, the extreme isolation?
Somebody said, nothing is real, so there's nothing to get hung about. A prophet said that. And
Los Beatles.
It's ultimately it's all illusionary, ¿no? No hay que desesperarse, digo yo. Esa es mi conclusión. No a la desesperación, sí a la inspiración.
I like that.
De acuerdo. I love you, carnales, eh? I love you.
I love you too. Gracias por compartir. Well, we should wrap it up, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. But before we go, I wanted to let you know that next week we're going to have Elvez on from the Zeros. And Elvez, the Mexican Elvis, who ran for president many tours. And the only one he missed was 2016. So we're all upset that when there was no Elvez for Prez tour, Trump won. But he was planning on running again this year with his tour, but now we've got the coronavirus. We're going to see what's new. He's in Seattle, which is a hot spot. So join us, register next week for Elvez. You can register at dreamocracyinamerica.org. And also, if you like what you saw and you want to support the project, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/dreamocracy. And Herbert is available on Facebook, so be his Facebook friend. He's posting a lot of cool stuff. what do you call it? His like you were saying, his lunch conversations. He shows a lot of his art that he does, and so it's a good friend to have on Facebook. So as we wrap out, here's Pocha with us again.
Hey, signing off from Dreamocracy. Keep dreaming. Keep dreaming.
So hopefully we'll see you next week and inspire you all to create your own Dreamocracy and be involved with us as we continue the projects. Another big round of applause for Herbert.
Woo!
Thanks, Victor, for organizing and putting it on.
All right, thank you guys. We love you all, and type in where you're in the chat room, where you're zooming in from, so we can see where you're all at.
Location.
LA, San Francisco, Orange County, San Antonio. Dreamlandia.
Dreaming is free. Woo! Yeah.
Davis, San Bernardino, Bay Park.
Bay Park, San Diego.
Tlastocamati.
Escondido.
All right, so thank you all.
San Antonio.
And we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk with Elvez.
Keep dreaming.